This
Geoff, would you like to just maybe wait another couple of minutes just to make sure everyone is here?
Sure, sure. So I'll stop
Okay.
recording, or I'll test
No,
this recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We can always cut this and
I
deal with
wanted
it.
practice makes perfect, man.
Leave it
I think
in, leave it in.
this overall is that this is going to be an ongoing, scheduled, very interactive type meetup. Kind of a community hours is one thing I think we've seen, Geoff, in the cloud native ecosystem. They do a very good job of like just having a time where everyone can jump in, catch up with a few things. I'm sure we're going to have a list of topics that come up as we're all at different areas of the learning journey. So yeah, I think we'll keep this going, but also keep it very relaxed, which is the way, if anyone's heard me present, that's exactly how I work. So if I can just rock up and talk, that's the best way.
Yeah, for certain. So you guys can see the presentation, and you can see me too?
Yeah.
Just okay, that's interesting. All right. I actually once in a presentation had my fan on the ceiling going, and someone complains that it's hypnotizing me. You like this presentation, but I don't turn it on anymore. I've actually got one of those flashing lights too, so it'll be turning and flashing lights. Buy our services. There we go.
You just create the Las Vegas atmosphere in there, Geoff.
That's right. Yeah, use hypnotism.
Yeah.
You have to watch though, because you're looking at the screen yourself, you'll hypnotize yourself. It's like, well, that was a dull presentation. Oh, it looks, there's a little 10, 10 people, it says. Oh, let's see. So it's not showing all the cameras. That's okay. So yeah, so, well, wait till for about 5 minutes maybe.
I don't know. Let's just wait for another minute or two, the max, and then we can just start.
I'm excited to see these slides, Geoff.
Well, they're very simple. I mean, I made them simple because it's the you know what, you named it. It's the open discussion community thing, which I like. But
yeah, I have seen them, I promise.
yeah, I mean, the Kubernetes Canada group, they have normally a little presentation by someone and then, talking. But now it's gotten so big that they can't really even have it open. So they've got to start separating the chunks. I mean, you've got 300 people. You can imagine on a Zoom or a GoToWebinar, it's like it's just one big background noise.
Similar concept to that. At DevOps Day Birmingham, they so probably about a similar number, right? 200, 300 people, but in person. They have the first day is all breakout sessions, and then the second day might start off with some lightning talks or maybe a few breakout sessions, but then the rest of the day is all open spaces, and you decide what that topic is going to be. So it's like everyone's asked and everyone puts in their answer and it comes up on a board and you basically vote for it. And the ones that get to the top of the tree, you then get assigned rooms and people go into those rooms to talk about that topic. I thought that was quite interesting. I've never seen that concept before. I thought that would be quite interesting.
SusieCon did that yesterday. So SusieCon, all the speakers were offered the chance to be an ambassador. So they offered to me, so it was free. I took it. And what you did is you create a subject, and then people up to only 7 people can sign up. So I created backup and recovery, whatever, and 4 people showed up, and it was actually quite good. I was worried because they didn't have an anti-troll thing. So they said, now if a troll enters, just send us a message and we'll get around to kicking them out. Well, it's only a 30-minute, talk. These guys could just nuke it. But luckily they were all well behaved. But it was good because, and there are a whole bunch of them. And there was like Rancher Desktop expert. I really wanted to go on, but I had something to do. There was a Rancher Desktop one about all the new features they're going to bring in. And I couldn't make it, but it was good, informal. There was one guy that was really, really a big VMware and Postgres guy. So we started asking all these deep Postgres questions, and it was like, well, yes, that's good point. Trying to waffle this, but I said, I'm not
I'd be
really.
interested to catch up with you after that, because I'm speaking to a Postgres expert at the moment, and he's been a DBA for forever. So obviously, from a Postgres point of view, from a database point of view, Postgres hasn't changed. Postgres is still Postgres, whether it's containered, whether it is a RDS, whether it is a VM, whether it's physical, blah blah blah, right? So he's got some quite good takes on what backup and replication should look like, and restore looks like from within Postgres. Has started talking about canister and projects like that around that, and he was like, and I feel like that's something that we need to do in the community, is speak to the people that look after the database as well as the infrastructure admins that are moving to this world around Kubernetes, and we're all on that learning journey. I guess we're going to get into a lot of that throughout the call as well.
Yeah, because they tend to be the most conservative. It's like Oracle database administrators, the most conservative. I remember we were trying to get them to use the Veeam plugin when it first came out, not the plug. The first thing that it was a scripts. Veeam put out scripts, and it was like, I'm not using this. Prove it, and we prove it. And they say, I'm still not using this. So
yeah,
wouldn't budge.
There's a barrier to entry, right? Or they think that, I shouldn't word it that way. They believe that the native tool set of a backup that sits next door to the live system is a backup. We've got a backup, but it's in the same LUN, it's in the same file system as the production database. And so you kind of have to, it feels like you have to do a little bit of a realization with people.
Yeah.
I don't know how I can say that without being offensive, but I'll work on it. I'm always working on it.
I tend to even point at the IAM layer. If you've got a common authentication platform that's going to be used for everything, both DR and production, that's a problem.
Indeed. Cool. Right. Let's kick things off, I think, Maddie. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's 5 minutes of content right up front if anyone wants to listen to our ramblings. But so first of all, I'd like to say a big welcome to everyone who's on the stream, but also who is watching this from a recording point of view. One of the things that we wanted to do was create a catch up, a scheduled meeting where we could do some sort of community hours where we talk around everything that we're doing, or I should say Geoff, being the lively soul in Kubernetes Korner, is doing within Kubernetes Korner, and sharing his experience as he walks down that line of understanding and learning the world of cloud native, and in particular around Kubernetes. So I think that's kind of the premise of what we're doing here. I think a lot of that's been on the forums, and it's been great, and it's been growing really well. I'd like to introduce Geoff as the Kubernetes Korner leader, just basically because he's been so active in that space. And I think it's important that it's not a Veeam person doing that. Like, I initially put the welcome message up and started that journey up with Ksenia purely for a community place for the vSphere admin, the infrastructure admin, to come and have a conversation, to ask the maybe not the difficult questions, but the explorative questions, like, how do I do this? What can I do? Why do I need this? And then it's kind of grown into that. I don't know how many posts, but I know we're well over 100 members now. But Geoff has been sharing a hell of a lot of stuff. I like I apologize on the slides that we didn't put our job titles. But anyway,
we're humble.
Yeah, but really the point is that Geoff's been making a crazy amount of noise around Kubernetes, and in particular around Kasten and our open source technologies, that we wanted to give him some responsibility, I guess, and the chance to kind of chair these meetings and hear from and ask the questions that hopefully all of us are at one stage wanting to hear. So going forward, I'll definitely be around to be a part of this. but I strongly believe that Geoff will take on this, and it'll be he'll be making his own TV series out of this. So also, just Geoff, I'm going to blow some more smoke your way. So Geoff's obviously been around the Veeam community for a while. He's the Veeam user group leader over in Canada as well. Been around the Veeam space for a while, but really honed in on this Kubernetes and cloud native since I started. I know I'll touch on that briefly as well about what my journey has looked like, because it might be relevant to some who haven't been following or anything. But Geoff, why don't you just introduce yourself and what you do? What do you do? Where do you come from?
Sure. So yeah, it's funny because you talk about Kubernetes and my journey, and it's actually, I was thinking about this, it's Veeam's fault. And I'll tell you why. Well, fault or good fault. When Veeam introduced the capacity tier back in, I don't know, if it was version 10, I can't remember. My company said, well, why don't we use this S3? Okay. So I looked around and I was scavenging. I've done Linux for years. And then I found Minio. So we talked to Minio and they said, well, you want to do multi-tenant, you've got to really do this on Kubernetes. And I thought, well, I'm a kind of smart guy. I think I'm really hot and all this. I'll just over the weekend, do a bit of reading, and then next week I'll set it all up. Did I get a surprise? So my humility was increased enormously when I realized you cannot wing this. Doesn't matter how long you've been working Linux. And so I quickly retreated and created the Docker Swarm, cluster, so it at least work. But I was bitten by the bug because I thought, well, this is interesting. I started to delve deeper into it, and it really fascinates you. And it brought back the nerd in me. So when I started IT, I had been totally trained in something different. I was a linguist, and I started doing, I'll be honest, I started doing computers because I wanted to play games. and then it wouldn't work. So I'd have to add some hardware and I'd have to read. And then that one thing led to another. And I got a VMCA, right? So my background is basically not IT. I kind of moved into IT. Then about 13 years ago or so, I started working in backup and recovery with some other software, IBM's Tivoli Storage Manager, which gave me heart condition, but I got over that. And Veeam, about 2013, what I really liked about it, and what I also liked about Kasten, was it created a level of simplicity over a very possible complicated core, so that you could go in at this level, and then if you wanted to, you could go deeper. And so very versatile software. And so I've been doing Veeam for a long time. I worked with 2 service providers before and did a lot of Cloud Connect, did all the certifications. And then, as I said, because of Veeam, I started getting Kubernetes. And then it was just a tidal wave. It was fun. I started doing it. Then the exams are very challenging. So when it's challenging, I start getting annoyed because, you might fail once, whatever. But it's fun. And when you do succeed, it gets even better. So what I like about this Kubernetes is as I said, it's brought back a lot of the fun aspects of IT that I originally had, so that my job becomes fun, which is, being paid to do something you like. So that's my situation right now. And again, when I first saw Kasten, it was before any partnership, before any acquisition. It was right after 2019 KubeCon. I saw some videos from KubeCon. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. This reminds me of Veeam a lot, the same kind of thing. A simple level, but goes really complicated, deeper. And then lo and behold, there's a partnership. Then there's an acquisition. I thought, it's a marriage made in heaven. So that's my kind of take on things. Don't know what more I can say, but yeah. So
that's awesome, Geoff. And there's a lot. In fact, there's a lot of things that resonate with me around a lot of things that you've said, with my own journey into this space. So similar background, right? So I've been at Veeam 7 years. Before I got pushed or parachuted into the cloud native side of the business with the acquisition of Kasten and looking after this, and basically trying to transition my virtualization and storage knowledge of VMware and everything that I've done before into this world, and basically get the fun, the bug, and that whole learning for to know what you're talking about and be that SME in that space and being able to tell the stories. But so 7.5 years been at Veeam, started off as an SE, but even prior to that, I was using Veeam software, and I was the only one that would pick that up, because we all know that backup is down the list on the exciting things. Normally you want to be rolling with the front end production systems, whether it be virtualization, whether it be storage, etc. But generally speaking, the bottom three always in the relegation zone before you. But an absolute requirement is security, data management, or data protection at least, and then a bit of observability in there as well, which Veeam just made simple, right? So it was the easy button. So as much as I was still doing the virtualization, the storage, it was the trifecta was now load, let's throw Veeam in there as well. So I did that for a few years from a sysadmin point of view, an end user, and then we moved into the channel distribution, then reseller, and then a bigger reseller, and then ended up moving to Veeam as an SE in the UK, where I did that for 18 months, did pretty good, but then Rick Vanover and me had a conversation and got moved into the product strategy group, and haven't looked back since. Right, I get some amazing opportunities to do some amazing things, and when the opportunity, when in that space, I was definitely more focused on the storage side of what we were doing, all of our universal storage APIs and how that works. So very much on the operations side, the infrastructure admin in me would be drawn towards VMware, also a vExpert, but also so that whole our world, our community, and I see a lot of names on here that I've spoken to about this stuff for the last 10 years easily, and I think moving into this, and this kind of goes back to the Kubernetes Korner and why, is that Veeam was always bottom of the list, or backup was always one of the bottom things, but it was a requirement. You needed it. Like, customers weren't not going to do it, but we hit an easy button, and the way in which Veeam educated ultimately the VMware community around the unofficial VCP guide and other things like that, other incentives like that, is really the way in which I think we're in that same boat again when it comes to Kubernetes, probably a much earlier. And we've got a like learning.kasten.io is very much around that premise: is how can we teach the community the best practices around not just backup, because again, backup's at the bottom of the list before we even get there. And this is kind of the exciting thing, is that there's no point me going to speak really to the community or to customers about backup straight off, because they need to know about the platform. They need to understand the capabilities around the platform as well. So everyone is on that learning journey. The infrastructure admin that was 5 years ago, we know that cloud came along, and some of us on the call will already be focused on AWS, Azure, Google, or somewhere in between. Maybe you work for a service provider and you leverage the public cloud on that take as well. And then this whole cloud native waves come along as well. But the infrastructure admin is very much going to have to learn all of these new platforms, and it's going to become like it has. Cloud came around pretty quick, and then cloud native came around pretty quick, and none of them have gone away. And that's, if you've heard any of my webinars, that's really a big thing, because virtual machines aren't going away. Physical machines haven't gone away for however long they've been around. Like, we're, as infrastructure operations focused people, we none of these are going away, and we have to know about all of them and how we protect the different workloads on them. So I think that's kind of, and then just to kind of say about how Kubernetes Korner really came around, was I wanted to emulate what we've done from a Kubernetes, the Veeam community forums, where you get access to R&D, you get access to product managers, R&D, etc., and you can always ask the hard questions in there, and like Gostev, who heads up the R&D function, he will likely reply to you with a solid answer. You might not like it, but it will be very blunt, and it will tell you exactly what you need to know to get on. So I kind of wanted to emulate that, but I wanted to go one step further. Like, Veeam have always had a forum around Veeam products. Now, we do break it down into vSphere, but they're generally always focused around something with Veeam. With Kubernetes Korner, it was more about a safe place to go and publicly talk about things that are going on, because over the last 2 years plus, like, I wouldn't even put this down to the pandemic, is that I found that a lot of community focus, whether it be virtualization, whether it be infrastructure, whether it be cloud native, all went into, oh, let's use Discord. Oh, let's use Slack. Oh, let's use something else hidden away from the world that's not indexable by Google, which means we can't search for any of these magical like threads that we're having in these closed circuit forums, tools. And I think that was a reason why Kubernetes Korner is completely open, searchable, SEO'd, all of that good stuff. And it's run by, well, everyone on the call, I imagine, has had an input into that. And I think that's the important thing, because we're all in a very different learning curve, different experiences, like we always have with virtualization as well. There's probably not one person that started that learning journey of virtualization at the same time. We all scatter or staggered our learning journey. And I think that's very much the same when it comes to Kubernetes. So I think that's really the key focus of Kubernetes Korner, is how do we share in public that is searchable a lot of the things that we find. And Geoff's a key part of that wheel, because he's the one who's finding out this stuff, and maybe he is a bit further down the line from a learning perspective in some areas. And I think, Geoff, you correct me if I'm wrong on that, because there is so much to learn in this space, and so many different branches and trees to go down. Like it's
not big enough for it all. That's the
yeah, there you go. And I think that's also important. Where like VMware, and I'm picking on VMware, and I know there's probably Microsoft people in the house as well, but when we think back to VMware, we had like VCP, VCAPS, VCVX, and you were the master of those areas. And you kind of, and same for, well, in fact, Microsoft's the same, right? MCSE, MCSA, MCITP, whatever, however far back you can go. You had those focused exams, and they were kind of the winners. But now we're in such a room where we have to know a lot about a lot of things. And you could be an absolute cert machine like Geoff and go and get all of these certs. And he obviously knows his stuff when he goes and sits down on them, and he works with this stuff on a daily basis. But if you try to get all of the certs that are available from a cloud native, you're going to spend more time doing certs than you are doing your day job. So I think it's learning a lot about a lot. But this space is about being able to share in public, have it searchable so you can go and find it, and sharing what you create from a content point of view. Not everyone has a blog. I remember first speaking to Geoff about there was, I can't remember if it was an article you'd already written, but you said about, oh, I just got this to work, and I was like, you should document that. And he goes, oh, I don't have a blog site. I was like, Kubernetes Korner, go and stick it on there, because not everyone wants that WordPress site that they manage. So
and then I went nuts, and he went, oh no, Geoff, not that many articles, come on.
No, I'm never going to complain about the amount of articles that you put in there. But so yeah, that's very much the premise behind Kubernetes Korner, why it is, and like massively exceeded expectations. I think that was another question at the beginning, is the expectations of Kubernetes Korner wasn't that it would grow that quick. I know Ksenia did an amazing job of like rallying around and seeing who was interested, and getting them enrolled in that little user group that we've got going on here. But yeah, the goal was really to take the Veeam community and help them be more aware of what's going on from a Kubernetes point of view. Even if you're not doing like implementing or using Kubernetes on a daily basis, it's still good to be aware of it. A lot of you are going to be working with new projects, different teams, different customers. If you're a reseller and a service provider, the not being aware of Kubernetes as a platform would be detrimental to you, I think, in the future, even if it's not the right answer. Like if you come into a customer meeting or an internal meeting where you're going to adopt a new application, a new service, whatever that may be, and you've got physical in your armory, you've got virtual in your armory, and you've got cloud, maybe like an EC2 instance or leveraging RDS or something along them lines, and you don't have Kubernetes, what you don't know, like, could potentially, by not being aware of Kubernetes as a platform, it means it can't be on that, it can't be on the table. So by having the awareness, you don't need to be an SME at that point. You just need to be aware of what it is and how it works to a very 101 level, because at least you can discount it off the table at that point as well. But being aware is the key part. What have we got here? In terms of preset expectations, no. I think going back to March 2021, so I live within the product strategy group, reporting into Rick and then on to Danny. Early on in 2021, I got offered an amazing opportunity to go and jump into the custom world, into the cloud native ecosystem, and I kind of probably made my own thing up. But my key goal was raise awareness and drive adoption. So raising awareness of Kubernetes to our people, to our community, our Veeam community, as well as learning a lot of this space as well. But then also driving adoption of custom technologies, which, if you think about it from a product strategy and the technologist the group that I'm part of, our job is to raise awareness and drive adoption of Veeam technologies, custom being one of those. But I was now being focused on create content, make noise, get speaking at events about custom K10 as a Veeam technology, but then also the open source projects that we have going on around Canister and Kubester that do specific tasks within that Kubernetes ecosystem. And then a lot of that, as you might have seen, was a lot about like documenting that, and whether that be via blogs or YouTube videos, webinars, etc. And then more recently around like doing this project around 90 days of DevOps, which has gone absolutely crazy. But it's around learning in public, and that's something that I think all of our team, from a product strategy group point of view, has always been about, is learning in public. It's okay to not know everything as well, and document that and then pass it on. Like if it helps one person, then it's worth it. Like I think in fact, Geoff, I might have said that to you as well, is that you could create all the articles under the sun, and if it helps one person, then that effort to take all them screenshots and walk through all of that, oh, this didn't work, and we go and fix it. If that helps one person, then that's you contributing back to the community, because I think it's very easy to take from the community and you learn from the community. I think it's also equally important to give back to the community and share your experience, because we all have different perspectives and we all have different day jobs. For the most part, we all work in different geos, we all work in different environments. So being able to share that, and a perspective is super important, because just because Geoff might write about Minikube, for example, I can write about Minikube as well, because it might be a different perspective. Now, we're not going to go around copying and pasting each other's stuff, but my perspective of that might be, or will be potentially different around that certain little project within the big ecosystem. So all I'd say there is that, and that hasn't changed from a virtual community to the cloud native community, and as we progress, I feel like it's going to become the same community anyway, just bigger with more people. That's what's going to happen. Geoff, I don't know if you've got anything to add there.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I mean, what you said is important. I especially reminds me of when I was learning Linux in, I like to say, the late 90s. But what I really liked was the helping attitude. So you'd have people very senior, very experienced, who would not make you feel silly if you asked a dumb question, which I asked a lot of them. And so when Kubernetes started, that kind of mentality was present, but it was even more so. I don't know why, more people in computers, more whatever. And we're at a really interesting point of time to get involved, because, as Michael said, people are all on different levels. I've done all these certifications, but I need more experience hands-on. And the more you learn, the more you understand that you don't know. So it's a perpetual situation in IT. But it's one that kind of keeps us fresh and young because you're always learning. But what I really like about this is that so far in this community, I've never met people who are not willing to help even just a little bit. I was surprised because you always expect in any group that there's going to be some very smart people, maybe a little bit tough and rough around the edges. But I can't say that I've met that. And your point about helping others, if I go back and think of all the people who helped me, who I don't even know, this is all virtual, I wouldn't have gotten where I am. Okay, I bought a couple of courses, but then those questions, I didn't understand this. That's essential. So as far as just helping one person, yeah, exactly. I know that there was one article I wrote and somebody wrote back to me and said, oh, thanks a lot. I was just dealing with this and I was stuck and you solved it for me. And then it turns out that that person then wrote something and helped 5 other people, and it just creates this snowball effect. So it's fun. And also, again, the technology, the amount of people who are going to have to make this transition is enormous, and you touched upon that. And I can understand, especially the people who have become very powerful and big in the virtualization world, and suddenly someone comes up to them and says, hey, guess what? Here's a brand new thing you get to learn, and you just got all these certifications. You go, oh man, I wanted to relax and sit on my porch or something. But that's what you've got to do is get them. The reason they're in IT to begin with is because something caught their interest. It might have been me with my playing Doom or whatever it was, or Prince of Persia. It doesn't matter. We all started for some reason that we liked it. But what I found over many years, especially dealing with priority 1 calls at 1 a.m. and fix this now, you start to lose the fun. And honestly, I'm not making this up. When I started playing Kubernetes, because of the fact that you can do so much on such a small little thing. It's like virtualization, that first experience of having like 5 servers all in one box. It's like, yeah, I'm God now. Well, that's enhanced enormously with Kubernetes because of how much more you can do and how much better you can actually emulate production. So it's brought back the fun. And I know for a fact that if I am enjoying something, I do it well. If I'm not enjoying it, I tend not to do so well. So yeah, and the learning portion of that's included too. So if it's fun, it's a positive atmosphere, you feel your progress, and then you start to help people. It becomes not so much a job, but a pastime.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest hurdles that I think I had before being like thrown into this world was I feel like the barrier of entry was potentially too high. I remember speaking to Niraj, who's the co-founder and CEO of Kasten, who was talking to me about this role, and I was constantly saying, what about the learning curve? The learning curve seems very steep. And he was like, don't worry about that. Like, you'll pick it up in no time, like with your knowledge around vSphere and virtualization. And I think now after, and I'm by no means an expert, because I don't think anyone is. This platform has been around for 8 years. I don't think there's any experts. And the fact that it's being released 3 times, this is just Kubernetes being released 3 times a year, and then the rest of the projects from the CNCF that are being incubated and sandboxed, and all of the weird and wonderful progress charts that they've got going on. No one's an expert in everything here. No way. You have to be a bit of a jack of all trades, which I think we all know that from an operations and infrastructure point of view as well. Anyway, the amount of people that I've spoke to about configuration management around Ansible, around Terraform, and that are only focused on virtual machines or virtualization, and maybe they've got a toe in the water from a cloud point of view. All of that skill set still gets taken to the cloud native world. It's just another way of being able to leverage a different platform to do something else. So it's the way in which, if anyone was at Veeam on the session that I did actually in person with Tom Seitler, was very much taking the fundamentals or the building blocks of Kubernetes and likening it to vSphere. So we talk about virtual machines and how we manage them. Well, a virtual machine can live on its own on ESXi, absolutely. But if that ESXi node dies, then so does the virtual machine. When you couple the ESXi host together with the virtual center, then your VMs are orchestrated between all of the nodes or ESXi hosts within. So I feel like, and I've mentioned this before, and it's a terrible analogy. I did it with Rick on a Friday LinkedIn Live thing, and I said it's a bit like Swiss cheese. You might know a little bit about it, but you've got loads of holes all over the place. So it's about filling up a little bit of those holes so that you've got a much more well-rounded view and understanding of what it looks like. And I think you saw a lot of heads nod in my session that were like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And obviously Kubernetes is the container orchestration engine for containers and not virtual machines. I will say yet, because that might happen with KubeVirt and different things, right? But I feel like this platform is not going away. So having the awareness of it and just dipping your toe in the water, and I'll plug again that learning.kasten.io, huge resource, lots of effort gone into that, about again going through the building blocks of Kubernetes, and giving you an understanding of what that looks like. Obviously, there's a sprinkle of K10 in there, but nothing in your face at all, is my opinion anyway. We've left it quite community friendly and not very, like, sales have zero influence at all in that platform. Yeah, so Kubernetes Korner, so no one's going away. I think these are important, and hopefully, and please give us feedback as to what you want to hear and what you want to see, either via the chat or in Kubernetes Korner, to drum up some interest. And we can definitely continue to have those out of band conversations within the forum. As we start to travel a bit more, I'm not going to be as active in there, that's for sure. Which is why we've found, well, in fact, he does more than me in there already, in the fearless community leader of Geoff Burke. But it's a community, right? And there's a lot more activity. It's not just Geoff. There's a lot of the community members are all having their say and contributing that way. So we wanted to keep it going, keep sharing it, keep building this as a community, because I feel like there is a huge uptake, or there is going to be a huge uptake from the vSphere admin. You could just look at the vExperts and them all moving towards that understanding around Kubernetes and the whole cloud native ecosystem. I don't know if that's a question for me. What would you like to see in the corner? I think more discussions. Like, no question is silly or stupid at all, because everyone's at different journeys, and I think if we can learn in public and share our thoughts or opinions in obviously a nice and friendly way, and not calling anyone out on specific questions or the like, then we're all going to grow that little bit more by having that understanding of the platform of Kubernetes. And as much as it's called Kubernetes Korner, obviously everything revolves around that, even from a CNCF point of view. But there are so many other projects that are involved there, and Geoff has touched on most recently around Calico, which is a networking project. Yes, Kubernetes can use it, but it can be used in other areas, other container orchestration engines as well. So it probably should have been called Cloud Native Korner. I was trying to get the Kubernetes Korner and being very creative with the naming, but really it was around that, just more discussion, and I think more resources. And I feel like that resources call is quite a big one, because I think with the pandemic, I feel like we've been surrounded by, or even drowning in content, whether it's YouTube videos, blogs, just content in general. Everyone's a content creator now, which is great, but how do you know which one to take? And it's like, you need someone to curate that so that we do pick the right content. I found that very difficult during that 90 days of DevOps to wrangle out some of the not so good content where maybe some mistakes were being made, or it wasn't as clear as it should be. So finding the right resources to then share with the community is also key and important. And I think we can all testify to that, where whether it's virtualization, whether it's Microsoft, etc. But having that good solid content means that we can learn something quicker. We don't want to learn something that doesn't quite work or it gets us 85% of the way, right? There's plenty of that hasn't changed, right? That still happens in the cloud native ecosystem. I'm sure many of you know that already. Was there any questions that came in, Geoff? Or is there anything you want to add?
I just wanted to
Have we
add
missed
one
any
thing
slides?
too. Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing too about it, which is I think important is who to target, because it is an interesting question. So right now, Kubernetes Korner, I think, is more hitting the existing Veeam community. So the virtualization people, the people who have been using Veeam for years, and they're kind of wandering in. They know that this is coming. They've got to learn it, so they're kind of wandering in. So I would see them as one focus point, and to get them in gradually to help them start their journey. But the other areas I'm really interested in is getting this in the DevOps community, because I've noticed when I've been doing some of these kind of cross-border deals where, you know, the Calico area, or I was at SusieCon yesterday, one of these guys who I can't remember what he's doing, but he's big in the DevOps world. Well, not as big as Michael, but I mean, he's big in the sense that he's doing some interesting stuff, whatever. He went, wow, this is fantastic interface for a backup software. Because I've used Kasten, of course. And, you know, I realized that people might not have seen this. And I suddenly thought, well, wait a minute, we need to throw the fishing rod over there and try to lure these people in, so that we will try. And that Michael also hit on something really important where we have an advantage. A lot of the areas where they're discussing stuff is closed. Some might be some great ideas, but you know that everyone, like myself who's lazy, will Google first, and it doesn't show up, whereas this does. And so what I'm going to try to do is, as I'm getting more and more into the DevOps community world, which I'm trying to infiltrate, I shouldn't use infiltrate, it sounds a little spooky, but trying to get into, is to spread the word about Kubernetes Korner. I don't know if you use the word agnostic. I'm going to try to say, okay, Veeam is doing this, yes, but look, it's called Kubernetes Korner. It's not called by Kasten Korner or by Veeam Korner. Which is very important, because the open source community, the Veeam people know, you know, there's vSphere and there's marketing and all this, and they're kind of used to that. You know, the next big thing, if you remember a few years ago, that kind of annoyed the technical people, but the open source community is very sensitive to any kind of pressure, you know, like, you know, you're going to buy this, come on. That gets them scared. They like the whole educational thing to learn. Doesn't mean they won't buy something, they will, but it's the presentation and what you're offering them right off the bat, learning wise, or even, you know, testing, whatever, and gets them interested. So that's the two areas I see of really targeting, which I'm going to make an effort at. And so we're open to ideas, I think, from everybody. I think because it's a community, and people have great ideas what to do, what events, what topics are you interested in, what, you know, I had one idea about maybe having a feedback on the casting learning site labs, because I had one person, I think it was a Veeam on, say, you know, Geoff, I did this lab 5 and I didn't understand any of it. I just copy and paste, because you know you copy and paste, and I got the certificate and went to my boss, look, but I didn't understand anything. So I thought, well, that's not the purpose. I mean, that's good that he showed his boss, might get a raise, but what we want to do is help understand. And so in a as Michael said, in a comfortable community where you're not feeling that you're going to be hit back with, oh, that's a dumb question, you know, no. So that's one of the ideas. But if anybody here has any ideas, the more the merrier, you know.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on some of your ideas later on, Geoff, as to like what are the talk tracks later on for these type open hours. I see a question in there. Is there any documentation that covers the installation of a Kasten compatible CSI? I know that in the documentation there is a list of supported CSI drivers, but I've tried with NFS, HostPath, OpenEBS, but never got past the storage class validation with our primer. Geoff, do you want to? I've got an answer, but I'll let you go first.
So I'll give you an example right off the bat. So first of all, I think I did a post on OpenEBS ZFS CSI using micro Cade S. I was playing with that, and I decided to, when it works, I post. When it doesn't, I don't. So you know that if it's in there, it means it worked. Got to, you know, keep my reputation. But I'll give you an example of what just happened last week. I was playing with the CIS host pass driver. And basically, for people who might not know, what happens is CSI, Container Storage Interface, is like a plugin. And think of it as this is very simple, not programmatic, that if you don't have things like that, then if you've got a new piece of storage, you have to put the code inside the Kubernetes app API. And so you get this big bloated monster. So what they did, they create a plugin, and then programmers can program for that CSI. And the beauty of that is you can snapshot it, which Cast can use. Cast can use generic too. But anyways, I was fooling with CSI host path in K3S. I got into a big problem. I messed it up and whatever. And I started Googling, and I couldn't find anyone who just removed the long-winded, 20-hour reading and just said, okay, here are the steps. This works. So I'm going to do that. So your question is very good. That happens to me all the time in the Kubernetes world. One of the reasons is because some of the people who've been there for a while are more on the dev side than the ops side. So their dev mentality, they're going to, boom, 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 boom. And for me as an operations person, being naturally lazy, I just want to quick, yep, it works great. I'll read later how it works deep. But if you need something to work fast, 20 pages is no good. So that's a perfect example of what I'm going to try to do. Whenever I test something and I get it to work and I find the simple steps to get it going, I'm going to put that in a very simple, short blog. It doesn't mean you shouldn't go back, and really read and read the manual kind of thing, because you want to know it'll help you. But sometimes you just want it to work because you're testing something else. And that's what happened to me. So definitely that's a great question, and one thing we're going to try to address more.
Yeah, I think I remember there being an open EBS CSI driver. I think it was from C-Store.
Yep, there's one C-Store. ZFS is if you're doing it locally testing, then you can use the ZFS one. That's the one I use. But yeah, C-Store. I don't know if Jira has it yet or not, but either way, it's not simple. I remember like Rook Ceph, I've done that a lot. I did the vSphere one, and they all are. It's not that they're complicated, but they require some effort. So
I'm just trying to find them links now. But that is a perfect question for a forum post on there, because there might be people that aren't on the call that can all jump in and give you a hand, and because of the nature of Kubernetes and that we can run like something locally, we don't have to rely on running. And I guess this is where the question's coming from, is that we want to take what we've got at home. So we want to be able to use like machine laptops. And I did a webinar a few weeks back where we're using Minikube and using that to demonstrate casting K10. But obviously we want there I'm limited to using the CSI host path driver and the volume snapshot class and as add-ons. And really I'm kind of simplifying and not really having to know what is going on under the hood. Like, you don't need to know about control planes and worker node or infrastructure nodes, and you don't need to know any of that, because Minikube just abstracts that all away and gives you a Kubernetes cluster off the bat. So I think more of this hands-on stuff. I think, and I did a blog beginning of last year again around the NFS provisioner. Now the NFS provisioner works great, and it means you can have persistent volume claims and you can start having data. But when it comes to CSI, or when it comes to other CSI type functionality around volumes and snapshots, or volume snapshots, it falls down there. It's not, there's not that capability in the NFS provisioner, unless that's changed. I don't have any gear at home anymore to be able to do anything. So yeah.
The other thing too, Michael, as you said, it's evolving so quickly. Stuff comes out all the time. I've been playing recently with Direct PV from Minio. So they weren't happy with the storage provisioning for their solution. So they went and built a driver themselves. And so that's the kind of exciting stuff that we could do in the discussions, is if you have heard of something and you don't even understand what it is, you can bring it up, say, guys, what is this? Girls, guys, how does this work? And then we can all look at it. I think that's going to be a fun thing, but especially the working on your desktop, because there, as you know, there are different solutions. There's Rancher Desktop now, it's gotten very popular since Docker Desktop became commercial. There's Minikube, there's Multipass, there's MicroKDS, and I think that holding people's hand through those is important, because I've had a lot of challenges. My new company forced me to go into a MacBook M1 Silicon chip. And so everything I knew basically went out the window. Not so much, but there was a lot of different challenges. So people have different hardware out there, and if they just want to get to work. we can help them, and then everyone can learn from each other, which is a lot of fun.
I've just posted another one, CSI driver NFS. It looks like it might be the one. This driver requires existing already configured NFS or NFS version 3 or 4, so any NAS at home should be able to handle that. If not, you've got an old NAS. It supports dynamic provisioning, which is what you want, of persistent volumes via persistent volume claims. Right, but does it have, which is great if you want to just get something up and running, but then when it comes to using K10, we obviously need that volume snapshot class, which I don't see in here. Let me have a look.
And two, keep in mind, people, that one of the things that can be very confusing is that the external snapshotter is not included if you're just building your own Kubernetes or in K3S, for instance, now, but it is included in big distributions. And so that's why people get confused. I know, like, people using OpenShift, they go, well, wait a minute, why is that a problem? It's because if you build a kubeadm cluster, you've got to do this yourself. When I first built a Rook Ceph setup, and nothing was working, and then it took a lot of effort to figure out, well, you don't have an external snapshotter. Well, why not? I installed everything. No, you didn't. Kubernetes is like a big mosaic, and if you look at it from far away, it's very intimidating. So you got to go up close and just build it like that. That's my little analogy or metaphor of it. But then when it gets working, you can really be happy. So yeah, so if anybody else has ideas about what to do to empower the site, make it go forward, anytime, please write, me or Madalena or Michael, because I think there's a lot of potential here. And certainly I've seen the reaction. A lot of people in the DevOps world just don't know. There's so much out there. It's kind of distracting. But I do know that the Veeam community forums and the Veeam hub are something that set Veeam apart from a lot of other, not even backup software period. Really well managed, well kept together. So we've got something sitting there. It's already very powerful, and we just have to put our content on top of
it. Yeah, so I just looked. There is no volume snapshot class there. So the primer that you run before you deploy K10. Yeah. Okay. So. Sorry, there's another message that came in saying tested NFS. I can configure the storage class with the driver. Yeah, it all works great. Created even the volume snapshot class, and it works very well with the PVC. I need to see the error on there. Like, let's see what the error says. I think it's Farouk, and we might be able to help. Throw it in the forum, and we can have a look at that. Tag me and Geoff in there, and we'll have a look. So I know we're 5 minutes from time. Geoff, so I've said about we're going to get a schedule out of these. So we're going to have these like community hours. I don't know if it's bi-weekly, monthly. I think monthly probably to begin with. Maddie's nodding her head, so that's a good sign. Obviously you had to endure me being on there for the first one, Geoff, but what's your plans going forward? Similar to what you just said?
I'm thinking of a number of things. One is, of course, open discussion. I'm also thinking interviewing people would be interesting as well. So to reach out to people, especially in the Kubernetes world, to bring them into this world. But also, for instance, live sandboxes, whereby I'm going to build something and everyone's going to watch and help out, and we can destroy it and make it not work, and that kind of fun, just to participate and have fun. But then something like that would also have the instructions, so then someone could take it away and do it themselves. So I want this to be not only informational and purely just back and forth and answering questions, but also if we can get our hands on things together and build things, I think that would be useful. Because I know that when I was starting, I would run into problems which were actually very simply solved, but I couldn't find the answer when I Googled. I didn't know where to ask. I didn't know what to ask. And so someone who's further along can just fix that in a second for you, and then boom, you're moving on. And I think there'd be a lot of value there too. And everything. I mean, not just backup. Obviously, backup's a big topic. I mean, certifications, you name it. I think if people are getting value from a resource where they actually see the results, they see that now they're capable of doing something, they've got a new skill or new certification, that'll create success. They'll talk about it and whatnot. So that's kind of my plan. And again, listening to what people want. we'll talk to the legends, the vanguards, we'll talk to everyone who's just in the community, and maybe put out some polls, maybe have some events. I don't know. We'll see. It's it's going to be. We're not part of the main. We're part of Veeam, but we're also kind of our own corner, right? And when you want to go nuts, you can go in the corner. No one will see you, kind of thing.
Yeah, love that.
That's it. Just gone. So let's cut them off.
Yeah, I literally just want I want to be involved, and I want to hear all of the interesting takes and stuff around that. But I want the community should be in control of the topics. And like, I know it's being recorded, but even like using open source alternatives to casting and protecting those workloads, even if we get to that, like I said at the very beginning, to get to backup of Kubernetes applications, there is a load of hurdles and a load of track that you need to get through first before you even think about protecting workloads. But that open discussion about other alternatives, whether it be open source or whether it be the competition, maybe it's not the right forum for that. But again, we're not going to control it. We want it to run as it does.
People might ask. They might say, "Hey, Geoff, these guys do this. What does Kasten do?" I mean, from what I've seen of Kasten, the other stuff, I'm pretty confident Kasten is kicking everyone else down the street for now. But I think that's also good because I think, can provide feedback to the Kasten developers. We can provide things like that. Say, well, people are seeing this in this product and they want it, and they think it's good, and they've shown us why they think it's good, and that's the way you get better, right? If the other team's kicking the ball from the sidelines better, you got to learn how to do it. So I think that's good. I mean, and it also is good because it will show that this is not a purely corporate, buy. No, we're trying to invite people, and then you're going to make the choice, but you're going to choose casting because it is so much better.
Yeah, that's awesome. Interesting that. So Jim, I know you're on here as well, mate. He's worked through the labs. He's just posted in Kubernetes Korner. So that's your first job, Geoff.
There we go.
He's going to build his own little cluster inside his lab. Any recommendations around size in the lab? I think that's a super way of starting things, Jim. Just asking that question because, again, you're asking about like how many VMs, what CPU, RAM, disk, which is fundamentally that's what a Kubernetes node looks like, right? We still need to have CPU. It's just a computer with an operating system on. And then we run Kubernetes on top as an application that then pulls together all the resources. And it will sound very familiar to whether you're a Microsoft Hyper-V background, whether you're a VMware background, whether you're a public cloud background. Funnily enough, all of them still need to have some sort of CPU, memory, and disk behind them. So I think that could be a really interesting and very busy first post within the forum. So, but I think we're on top of the hour now, Geoff. So awesome for everyone who joined live. Hopefully it was useful. Just hearing some insight in that, let's just get on with it. Let's start learning. And it's okay to we're nowhere near the big boom, right? For those again that have been around, that virtualization boom happened, and then everyone clambered and got on board, or you were there beforehand. Great stuff. We're not at that boom yet. We've got time. I don't know how much time, but we've got time to raise that awareness of Kubernetes in general and cloud native ecosystems and everything around that. So I'll shut up now. I'll pass it all back to Geoff to close out. But yeah, awesome. Thank you everyone for joining. And I'll see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you everyone, and please write to me directly if you have any ideas, or post on the forum. So if you don't want to post on the forum because you're not sure about it, just private message me and we can talk about it. But again, it's going to be a lot of fun. That's the main target, is fun, because if it's fun, we're going to do it. If it's not fun, we're not, right? So okay, well, thank you very much, folks, and I think that'll be it. It's 10:59, went right up to the end of the hour. Thank you very much, and see you later.
Thank you. Ciao.